Yeah, sure. Excellent. So hi, I'm Ron there with IGEL. We have Aaron and Sarah on as well. But basically, what I want to go over here around IGEL is you kind of think about, as you saw in the prior slides, talking about your journey to the cloud, things like that. If you step back and think, you may have had conversations, 5, 10, for some of you, maybe 20 years ago, where the discussions were around, hey, does it make sense to run our own email servers, right? And most of those conversations are gone now. It's you're running it in Microsoft, you're running it in Google for your email, your data is there, all that stuff is there. And what's going on right now is really, does it really make sense to keep running Windows on the endpoint? You can move the Windows, move the apps into the data center or the cloud, secure it, control it, and then really, what do you do on the endpoint? And that's kind of where IGEL comes in. So from IGEL's point of view, we've built a rock solid, secure endpoint that's read-only, and then is tied and optimized to work with your backend environment. If it's unified communications, all of those kind of pieces there. And then we partner with ControlUp, for example, for analytics. So as you've moved all of that data and your apps and stuff into the data center of the cloud, really in the hybrid work, things like that, it's questions around what's the end-to-end user experience and things like that. And ControlUp will talk more about that and some demos later. But really, for the back end, for what we have with IGEL is what we call as our Cosmos. So we have some basic cloud services, which allows for onboarding service. Basically, you get a laptop or a device from HP, Lenovo, LG, one of our partners. You open it up, IGEL's pre-installed on it. You type in your email address, and in like less than 3 minutes, you're connected in and working, right? Read only, very easy, simple around that. So those cloud services, we have a UMS, which manages the control and the settings that go out to the devices. And then we have basically with that, our IGEL OS, which was our prior version that we had, which kind of had everything baked in it and integrated. And then we also now have OS 12, which is kind of a redesigned, smaller footprint. You could kind of think about it like when you get an Apple iPhone, right? You get the base OS, and then you go to an app store and choose the apps. So now with this Cosmos and the cloud services, we have simple over-the-air update service. We have an app portal, kind of like what you see from the iPhone and the Apple ecosystem around that, and then be able to have the tie-ins with the strong unified communications and all of that. So really, in looking at this, the things, here's a couple of points to kind of point out around IGEL is we have that strong hardware partnership. So with IGEL, we have a strong user community. I think there's over 10,000 members in the IGEL community, Slack that we have for support and stuff. But really, we have our disrupt events and things. And when we had that this spring, think of an event where you could get HP, Lenovo, LG up on stage at the same time, talking about, the experience and the stuff with IGEL and their partnership. So as I mentioned, IGEL OS pre-installed on these devices. You get one. So if you ship it to a user at home, they open it up, type in their email address, in less than 3 minutes, they're connected in and doing what they need to do. We have, tie in with our identity providers. So Azure Active Directory, Okta, or Ping, so that you can get that kind of single sign-on kind of experience. I mentioned the app portal. So we think of the Apple Store, where you have the apps there, being able to download and configure them. For the healthcare customers, a lot of them now are looking at, hey, let's moving to Microsoft AVD. And so one of the key pieces out there is the tap and go with Improvada. So we have that capability today built in. We also have, with the Windows 365 client and direct boot. So if you're doing Windows 365 or even a Microsoft AVD, you can configure the endpoint. So as soon as it boots, it just goes and connects into that. They don't see any of the back end of IGEL. And that's really what Microsoft wanted when we developed this with them, is just that basically boot right into your AVD or your Windows 365. Another thing, what we've seen now, and a lot of stuff we're taking people on the journey, was when COVID came out, and they rushed, they got laptops to people, sent them home, and some healthcare providers, within weeks or days, had ransomware, keyloggers, all this messed up stuff on it. So one of the other pieces that IGEL has is not only being able to install it on a device, but we have a UD Pocket thumb drive. So in that one case with that large payer provider that was hacked, that we were able to send out UD Pockets to the thousands of users, they plug it in and they securely boot off of that and continue to work until they could get those devices back, wipe them, and install IGEL on it. So all of those, think about all those devices you may have out there right now that you did for COVID, and you may be talking about getting budget for next year around, PC refreshes. Now those are, 4 years old or so. Well, really the thing is you take those laptops, convert them to IGEL, and get another 3 or 4 years of life out of those devices, less taxing on the system. So an old laptop that you might be getting 2 or 3 hours of battery life, you can get 4 or 6 hours of battery life out of that. Really secure for that device, to manage. And then basically from a support point of view, we have large retail customers, hundreds, thousands of seats, and basically you can, with one full-time equivalent, support over 30,000 devices per FTE. And then from your help desk call in, it's very easy and simple since it's read only. If a user had an issue, they call the help desk or contact them. The first thing they would say, let's just reboot it, and that should clean anything up. And then after that, then it's pretty much set to go. So your first contact resolution, you'll get up into the mid upper 90% on that. And then really, again, just kind of think about this for the OS that's built for the enterprise. Instead of continuing to run Windows on the endpoint, your two main options are looking at IGEL or maybe Chrome in the Chrome OS. With an IGEL device, we have it fit for purpose, tied in with unified communications, analytics with ControlUp, those kind of pieces there. And then you continue to run and support that device over the life of the device. If you're doing Chrome OS or looking at that, as you may know, the hardware vendors working with Google have already determined you buy this device, they've already determined an end of life for that device that you'll stop getting updates and stuff for. So anyway, things to look at for that. And then from a verticals point of view, and we can get these slides to you as well, but basically looking at the healthcare, top challenges around there is, with the staff, you want, security and compliance, your budgets, being able to extend the life of those devices, secure them, read only, those kind of pieces. Similar message in the finance and banking. One of the reasons why we picked up HP and Lenovo was they had large banking customers, and those customers said, we want you to support IGEL. And so, with those things there, that's why they do it. And you sell tens of thousands of devices preloaded with IGEL and ship them out to their banking customers. And then in the retail point of view, similar stuff, point of sale devices, the read-only, the security and stuff around that you've got. And then in the manufacturing out on the shop floor, having, fit for purpose, secure devices that just run. And again, if there's an issue on the device, even in, manufacturing lines, hey, let's reboot it and then boom, go, so there's minimal time to, support and keep those going. So that's kind of the basic right there. I want to go ahead and stop now, and we'll turn it over to Jeff.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Brian, do you have anything to say before?
Yeah, real quick, as we're transitioning out of that, I saw several communications lately on LinkedIn where CTOs are like asking for guidance on standardizations, and when you're looking at hardware devices. And when customers really think about it, you got 4 generations of a workforce out there, and you're trying to figure out standards and how you're going to access. And I love what IGEL is doing, providing a secure solution, no matter what device, what location, they can manage them all the same, whether it's a thin device, Mac device, all those different options. So thank you for sharing on that, Ron, and excited, like I said, not only the access to the device, but now we get to roll into Jeff and John talking about how we're going to ensure the performance of that access no matter where they're working at. So Jeff, thank you.
Thanks. When I was hearing things we're talking about so far, I kept thinking about, there's day one versus day two activity. Day one is configuration, deployment, access, security. I mean, you're setting up the device. Day two, troubleshooting remediation. That's where we kind of come in. So let me just give you an overview of our product set, and then I'll get right into demos. What ControlUp does, we're a SaaS-based application. We were kind of born in the virtualization world. So we monitor, manage, troubleshoot, remediate virtual apps, hypervisors, VDI, the network layer, and even DAS. So if your solution is like an AVD or Windows 365, we got you covered there, all in the same console. We also have synthetic transaction monitoring. So maybe it's even my DAS solution. I can synthetically, from anywhere in the world, test my DAS environment. Like I could actually log on, look at the load times, understand if something's off, and report on it if it's off. I can do synthetic transactions against cloud hypervisors, SaaS, and web apps. And the physical aspect, whether it's a thin client or a thick client, I can take a look at all the metrics on there. I take a look at network metrics and even unified comms. We've called this the ControlUp Digital Employee Experience, right? We drill down on that as it helps you close tickets faster, right? So we have historical performance metrics, real-time updates. I can understand what's going on. I like to think of it as like, remember Microsoft Operations Manager? A lot of you are familiar with that. That was for the servers. That was all these great metrics and solutions around how is my server infrastructures performing. I can get those same exact metrics from my clients now. We think about preventing tickets. Our customers run 2.7 million automations per week to fix things that would have been a help desk ticket. I'll show you a little bit about that. And reduce spend. We can consolidate some applications you already have out there. All right, well, let's take a look at this then. This demo time. What we're seeing here is, like I said, we're kind of born in this VDI world. So I see a great dashboard. It's giving me all kinds of metrics, average protocol, latency, average throughput, stress levels, things like that. When I dive down into my details, I can see in this environment, I have one data center, I have 2 clusters. I'm going to click on the 2 clusters that are out there. Oh, I have this one has a high stress performance. I can kind of, what we say, follow the red, see what's going down on that. But for this overview, it's going to want to kind of give you just an overview of the whole UI. What's interesting with this, if I hit all user sessions, I have this area over here. So I'm getting all this end-to-end metrics of my virtual environment, no matter if it's Citrix, Horizon, AVD, Windows 365. I got all this end-to-end information. Here's something that no one is doing. No one is doing. I see a client metrics over here. We have a remote DX agent that I can put on this device. And right here is telling me, oh, my latency between my physical endpoint, not my VDI, my physical endpoint to the router, I have a 604 milliseconds delay, and then 628 to Google. So, when someone calls, you're like, is it me or is it you? In this case, it's you. I can't do anything to fix your latency. You have to go and talk to your ISP. You have to update your router. A lot of times we had customers that they shipped 5,000 50-foot Cat5 cables to all their customers because all their Wi-Fi's were so horrible. They had this horrible experience. How do they find that out? Through our tools. So this is our kind of overview of our VDI section. The other one is we have this, what we call Scout Bees. This is our synthetic transactions. So we set up the synthetic transactions from almost anywhere in the world to test almost anything in the world. And we can start looking at latency and responsiveness. So here's a Teams web server test. Here's a website. Here's a ControlUp gateway. Citrix Gateway. I can take a look at, my response times, throughputs. I can look at, I'm testing it from Frankfurt, London, Africa, Texas, Montreal. So I can see if there's a regional problem out there. If I just go ahead and, oops, click the Frankfurt one, then I see failures and success. On this failure, on this failure, the timeout was reached. So I can say, I start drilling down. Of course, I can be alerted to all these things. And that's kind of reactive still. Something went wrong, and I'm trying to figure out what went wrong. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. But then we also have this proactive stuff too, right? Let's go break down into my devices. Now, these are physical devices. What we're seeing here now is I have geolocation of these devices all over the world. So just right away, one of our customers we were working with, a computer showed up in Chad, Africa. So the help desk calls this person and said, "Hey, did you lose your computer?" They're like, "No." They're like, "Are you in Chad?" He's like, "Well, yeah, I lost my computer." Right? So they were able to remote wipe that machine and clean things up. But just right there, that showed great value to our customers. But when I'm looking through this, I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Online devices, Mac, Windows, Linux, right? Alerts, active applications. That's kind of cool. But remember, I'm kind of being proactive right now. If I want to take a look at CPU load, I probably have one computer down here. I have 1 out of 3 with a high CPU load here. I can go down to and say, hey, let's take a look at that. I want to view all of these devices. So it's just zooming in on that geographical location. This happens to be my house in my data center in my garage. And I see one computer right here has a huge CPU usage. I see it has a Wi-Fi signal, which isn't great. I really want to see things over 70%. My latency kind of jumped up here for a little bit, and available memory is fine. So if we kind of dive down into this is what I said, like ControlUp. We're doing things for the desktop that we used to use Microsoft Operations Manager for the server. I mean, this is huge right here. Let's take a look at like network latency. I can drill down on this network latency. This is between me and Google, or this device and Google, and I can actually drill down and see. So this is where we talk about, device consolidation. I might, as a desktop technician, help desk person, tier 1, 2, and 3, I now have tools that my networking people have. I have tools my networking people have. So I don't have to wait to escalate this problem, this ticket, to my networking people to address and then come back to me. In some cases, I can solve this right now saying, it's not me, it's you, and I can prove it out right here. Let me back up. Let me go back to this. So I also have my memory usage, thing like this, but my CPU queue length, like what's going on with this? If I kind of just drill down and take a look at, I'm going to drill down and say, okay, zoom in. And once I zoom in, I want to zoom in one more time and say, what's going on with this? And put this little dot here. Maybe one more time, I'm going to zoom in. Like, what is the actual, that's queue length. I'm sorry, I need CPU usage. Here we go. The actual thing that's taking up all of the usage is this CPU burner. Now, this is a demo, obviously. This is a demo. So I've been cranking up the CPU on this, but maybe someone's Bitcoin mining, or maybe we have an active process that's just going crazy, right? So then I can go, all right, let's look at my active processes on that. And I can see here that the CPU burner is taking 90% of my CPU, and I can just kill that thing. I can just terminate that thing. That's fine. It's gone now. Oh, it might take a few seconds. We're done. However, let's go back to an IGEL device. Here's my IGEL device. Let's take a look at that. I'm getting the same kind of metrics as a rich desktop, because a lot of times these can be rich desktops. They just have a thin OS on them. Look, I'm grabbing all of this great information from my IGEL device, right? So I can go in and do a deep dive and look at all the metrics coming out of this. So one of the cool things here is I want to do some reactive understanding of this. So I can come down here and do actions. Now my actions are scripts. So, like on Linux, might be Bash, or Windows is PowerShell, or C script, or whatever scripting language you're comfortable with. I can run a script action on this. In fact, let's say I wanted to update the device, or I wanted to get the warranty information. I want to reconfigure the IGEL device for ICG. I can do a whole bunch of information just based on those scripts. Now think about this for a second, how powerful this is. If I come down here to my scripts, here's my scripts. So it comes with a lot of scripts, but then I can add my scripts myself. So I have Windows scripts, Mac scripts, Linux scripts. If I do a new script, add script. So this is pretty awesome. I say, test, give it a description. And then what I do is, I'm not a real deep scripting coder. So I go out to GitHub, I do a search on what kind of script I want. I copy and paste and put into there. Is it PowerShell? Is it VB script? Is it, JScript, command script? If I come down here to Linux, is it, Python, Bash, Swift? So let's go back up here to Windows. I can say, I can group this thing. Now the grouping is like, maybe group 1 is my tier 1 people, group 2 is my tier 2 people, and so on and so forth. So I can, maybe I don't trust some people to run, format the whole machine and start over. Maybe I want my tier 1 doing that. After I set this all up, all right, let's come back down here and take a look. Oops, I'm sorry. Let's go back to my scripts. Let's go back to my scripts here. Boom. Good responsive machine. Let's go back to, back to my scripts. Let's go back to scripts. So here are my scripts. Let me go ahead and open one of these. Once I kind of configure this, then I can start saying, okay, now I can set up alerts. So the script might be the solution. The alert might be how I test it. So if I add an alert, so the alerts are pretty darn easy. In fact, we can go through a little wizard, or I can kind of start from scratch. Alert just says, hey, give it a name, give it a name, give it a description. Do I want all platforms, or Microsoft, Apple, or Mac OS or Linux? Give it a timeout window, and then give it this data index. So let me go ahead and click Windows. There we go. Good description. And then I can say, let's say like its CPU load is so high, I want to send a message to somebody, or I want to kill a process. Maybe it's a known issue. So here's where I can do my custom action scripts. These scripts are built as system context, and these scripts are built on user context. So right there, I can say, hey, depending on how I have to fix this, user mode or system mode, I'm going to run this script. This is where our customers are running 2.1 million alerts with an automated action per week. Now this is gigantic. I mean, this is just solving problems proactively, or if I run a script manually, that's do it reactively. So before I get to a couple other things, I know you're like, Jeff, this sounds great. Choice Solutions is doing an awesome job consulting and helping put these solutions together. IGEL is a great platform for all that day one manageability, light OS, security, compliance, all that good stuff. How do I get my agent on my IGEL device? Right here in our UI, I go thin clients, I hit IGEL, and right down, now it gives me the step-by-step configuration of how I configure my IGEL device to talk to my tenant, in ControlUp. That's how that starts gathering all that great information that we were just seeing right here. There we go. That's how we're seeing all this great content from that device, all that great systems. So just to summarize real quickly, again, we have these, what we call scout bees. These scouts are out there all over the world that I configure that start testing these services everywhere. And I can alert on those when that test falls below a category. In fact, if I'm logging on to, let's say it's a Citrix environment, Horizon environment, whatever, I actually have that screenshot of what the end user should see. And if that screenshot is a little bit different, we're going to alert on that. Because just let's say I was publishing out Office. Let's say it's Microsoft Word that everyone should be getting. But Word came out of licensing. So Word opens up, but you have this dialog box that says you're out of license. So it's not really working, but you actually authenticated and it came up. Well, since that screenshot's a little bit different, we're going to say that's an error. Alert on this. We need to have attention on this, right? We talked about this VDI world, right? Whether it's AVD, Citrix, Horizon, whatever that is. And we talked about this great metrics. We're getting detailed metrics from my host, my clusters, my machines, my processes that are out there, the user sessions. Within that user session, remember I had this great little remote DX that gave me information from that client side. Now this is like a light version of what we saw on the client side. For some customers, this is just fine. But for that deeper integration, for that detailed information that we want, we can come down here to our devices. I can also take a look at application performance. I missed a whole section here. How are your local applications performing? Here we have a little chart. What's this application here? This is Excel. So in a frustration level, it's not used very much. That's why it's this way. But the frustration's so high because it got a bad score. It was taking long to load. I know I did because I did that. We have other applications like Edge. Here is kind of starting to be a problem. Let's go back to application performance. We've got device performance overview. My device averages. These are a lot of let's say it's executive reporting. How many blue screens are we seeing out there? Missing patches, memory usage. We're even doing some battery information. Worst battery. This one's kind of interesting. It's battery health. So a lot of customers there. We talked earlier about hey, my battery life is maybe 2 hours on Windows, but if I take that same machine and I put an IGEL on there, I might get 4 hours out of that. That's absolutely true, and we can see what that battery health is. But one kind of cool thing is if we take a look at this battery health for a whole bunch of machine types, let's say they're all Lenovo somethings. These are all the same exact machine types, and for whatever reason, all of those, the battery health are going down. I can bundle up and buy 25, 50, 1,000 batteries and proactively ship those out to my end users as not just a courtesy, but to keep the digital employee experience running optimally, let's say. I also have things like network performance, user experience, end user activity. I mean, all this user experience, how machines with reboots, how are things going in my environment? Again, this is proactively. Once I solve all of their reactive problems, I start to go after proactive problems. The other thing, my demo environment kind of flipped over and I don't have the data in here, is we're also monitoring unified communication. We're doing Teams and Zoom. We're getting API data from Teams or Zoom, bringing that into our performance console, marrying that up with our device performance and saying, where are all your good calls? Where are your bad calls? And if it's bad, why was it bad? And then here's some scripts to fix some things if it's in our control, like clearing the Teams cache is a great example of that. So sure, some questions are coming in. I'm sure that we're answering some questions. Let me go one more thing before I get out of here, is if you liked what you see, all of this physical device stuff, this is just for the physical device stuff, application performance, device averages, network performance, my details, all this detailed information, all the reporting, all of the, even if I wanted to do a remote control, I know that remote control is built into the IGEL framework itself, but I can also remote control. I can do a remote shell, remote control, or remote shadow. All of this information you saw on these physical devices, guess what? We are doing a 50 user, we call it VIP pack. Now, if you're interested in this, you're going to get a survey from Choice Solutions. And I want you to say, I'm really interested in this 50 user VIP pack. This is not a trial. This is 50 users for free per the EULA, as far as I can see. This is not a 30-day trial. This is 50 users. Reach out. And there's not really any gimmick. In fact, once you sign up and you create a tenant and deploy an agent, we will send you an email saying, hey, we want you to get the most use out of this. And like once a week, we're like, did you know you can do these reports? Did you know you can do remote control? Here's how. Did you know how to do scripting? So we'll kind of guide you through to get the most use of this. If you like it, we want you to work with Choice Solutions and purchase it, obviously. If 50 uses enough, then you're just kind of working through this, and Choice Solutions is your great partner, and you're using a lot of IGEL, and it's out there and it's working. That's great too. But we're so confident that you'll love this product and get huge value out of it, that you just obviously keep going forward. The limitations is it doesn't come with the Zooms or Teams support. It's fine. It does not come with some end user sentiment. I didn't show that anyway. And instead of a year's worth of historical data, you get a week's worth of historical data. That's the open book limitation. With that, let's open up to some questions with our partners here. Brian?
Hey, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. I know that there were some questions that they're handling in the chat. And so I'm going to be bringing in two of our architects, Scott Osborne and Shane Kleinert here. So let me I'm going to share out my screen as well. As they're getting pulled on the next event we're going to be hosting while they're talking through this. But Oz and Shane, thanks for sharing out with the group on kind of how what we've been seeing with some of our customer base, and also the tools and how we use those internally with both IGEL and with ControlUp.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Brian, for bringing us on, and thank you, team, for both IGEL and ControlUp for kind of taking the time to go through both solutions. These are both solutions that are near and dear to our core of what we bring to our customers for end user computing. So it's funny, we got a long history with both solutions. ControlUp, we were working with their solution back in like 2012 when they first kind of came over to the US, and we've really seen that company just completely grow and take on more than just a traditional VDI use case to really a full holistic solution. And then after their acquisition a couple of years back, now the full digital employee experience, which has been really, really interesting for us on the Choice side, specifically because and it really I think shined during when COVID hit, just a remote use case, and really bringing forward how important that monitoring that last mile is, right? And so that's really the endpoint monitoring side of things. I'm sure all the admins that are out there, or consultants that are on the call, right? You essentially run into a scenario where Citrix is slow, or you're running into connectivity issues, and we got your endpoint or your backend monitored pretty well, but it's always the endpoint. What's the internet connection at that endpoint device? What's the endpoint specs, and what's going on in that particular endpoint? Is the CWA client crashing and stuff like that? You're getting random disconnects. So being able to have that full holistic monitoring has been night and day for a lot of our customers. So we're excited to have this kind of joint webinar here. And for me personally, I've been using ControlUp, like I said, since early 2012 days. And the biggest things that have been added most recently that really have made a big impact with troubleshooting is, has been the unified communication pieces. Seeing the direct tie-in, and I was just showing there a few minutes ago, but seeing the direct tie-in with Teams, Microsoft Teams, and seeing that data real time about call setup failures, and being able to see things about bandwidth utilization and packet drops and things like that. I think correlating that back to the user has been kind of a huge value add there. Yeah, so that's been a big thing for me, I would say, and obviously IGEL has just done a tremendous job on the endpoint. So really tying those two together has been pretty awesome. So I will also add.
Hey, Shane, also, this is Jeff again. So you mentioned this Teams and Zoom, and I wasn't really able to demo it, but that 50 user pack, if you sign up for that, obviously there's no expiration date. But then if you wanted to use the Teams or Zoom aspect of that, then you could, within the 50 user pack, sign up for a 21-day trial, and then that will go. And then if you decide not to use that trial going forward, that just expires, and you keep using the 50 user VIP pack.
Awesome. No, that's great to know. I mean, it's great to see that the folks here on the call will get to experience both. But just having, like, we use as a partner, we get the ability to use a kind of what's called a consultant license. So as we go and kind of get into our projects, we typically always bring in ControlUp, because we're able to use it for that kind of onboarding phase, for that user acceptance testing, kind of get a baseline before and after, before starting a project. So it's really nice to hear that the customer will actually be able to take those 50 DEX licenses. So during that even project, being able to take those DEX licenses and actually test them on the endpoints and get some full feedback. And, that is supported on IGEL as well, which is really nice, being able to get those insights there. So Oz, I don't know if you had any additional comments there on kind of some of the things that we've seen in the field, or on the DEX side. And
Yeah, the 50 user license that you mentioned is huge, because a lot of the projects we're working on, the endpoint statistics and everything, you can dive in deep on the endpoint, is missing most of the time, especially when it comes to, again, Zoom, Teams, all that stuff, right? The latency, round trip time metrics, all of that go up a lot of times when you're on calls or in Teams meetings, and that can be associated with the CPU or anything on the endpoint. So really being able to pair those all together is awesome. And this being not a trial, again, for this license is incredible, because we can use that now as we see fit. In a lot of our projects, we're going to pretty much use it every time at this point. Guarantee you that. It's like I told Jen, like we got to jump on this and use this, because especially those UAT phases. If you're rolling something out new and you want to see and see what things are going, what things are looking like on that endpoint, it's very, very important, and it's usually the missing piece of the puzzle, right? So.
Yeah, just Scott, just to let you know, if the customer's ever been a previous customer of ControlUp, or they've done a trial, then this doesn't apply. But there's some circumstances we can kind of work through. We just kind of need to escalate it. But if they've never been a customer of ControlUp, man, it just an email address from their company, and it just it has to provision, take about 5 minutes to provision, and then you're up and going.
Yeah, and some of the things that too, like you had mentioned, just in a short period of time, it's hard to really show how deep and wide ControlUp gets. But like some of the things that have been added, like historically from ControlUp, have been like the script-based actions, right? Being able to script against all aspects of the entities within ControlUp, so the VDAs or the endpoints. But being able to take the context from like all those column sets within ControlUp and insert those as variables to those scripts just opens up a whole wide range of opportunity. I can give you one off the top of my head. And one of our engineers, Rich, actually did a fantastic job. It's like typically non-persistent environment, right? You log off at reboots, right? So this was a real high, fast shift changing environment. It was a call center. And he's like, you know what, I can use this automated action, right? That's basically gives you the ability to, based on a trigger, to do an automated action, right? See something, do something kind of thing with ControlUp. So he basically looked at kind of the session count, timer inside of a VDA, and was like, If it hits 3, then we're going to do the reboot. So naturally, it automatically staggered that reboot. It was just a really easy automated action for him to basically look at, right? He just looked at that specific registry key. If he saw it, then it kicks off the reboot, in guest using the call to the broker. That way, it was it actually resetting the disk. But just as one example, like especially for the automation folks, it really opens up a whole slew of things. But more importantly, also like FS Logics is just a huge challenge in a lot of Citrix environments. Really good detailed monitoring there. And then one other piece that's a huge area for us, Oz and myself, we've really been kind of building out our EUC on Azure practice. And it's just a really deep tie into Microsoft Azure. And that they're continuing, started that a little bit ago and starting to, get wide like they always do, right? They get in, they get wide on the monitoring. So being able to bring in some of that storage account monitoring for Azure files down the road, NetApp files and things like that's also really nice. So it's not just holistic on the VDA or the endpoint, it's also holistic on the hypervisors and the cloud providers as well, AWS and Azure. So
Hey Shane, have you seen that action where when someone logs off of an AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop, when they log off, we could change the disk type from like an SSD to a slow storage. So all night long, you're only getting charged for that slow disk, that slow storage. And then back in the morning, we convert it back to an SSD to fast storage. And typically that's like $4 a day, $2 to $4 a day per person. But if you times it by the 500 or by 1,000, and then you times that by 365, for a year, that's huge savings right there. And we just have a script to do it. Bang.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we that's something we're real familiar with. We use on pure AVD environments, we use a third party that we work with called Nerdio, right? But that's a whole separate solution that you have to acquire, and it's a fantastic solution. But if you're a pure native AVD customer, you're a good DevOps shop, you're comfortable with the management, and you're a ControlUp customer, that's a win-win, right? Because you can add that scripted action. So I did not know it on the ControlUp side. I knew about it obviously on the other solutions that we work with and how important that is. Obviously, everything in Azure costs. So that's really good to see that.
Go check that out. We have a blog, maybe a webinar on that.
Bringing that up, folks on the webinar. Yeah, that's fantastic information.
Yeah, I think one of the other things, with the ControlUp is, as especially you get the remote workers, things like that, they call in and say, hey, they call in on Friday, right? And they say, hey, yesterday afternoon, my performance was crap, and open a ticket or whatever. It's nice to be able to go back in time, look at and find the root cause of that as well, right? And that's a lot of what you're spending time with the help desk, trying to resolve what's going on Thursday afternoons, or why is it when people come into this remote branch office, performance gets really bad or whatever, right? And be able to find the root cause.
Yep, 100%. Do you have a very important question, probably the most important question on the call here that came in? As you got a lot going on in the background in your office, is that a real background or not?
It is a real background. It's always a good talking. I got it all nice and organized. It's basically a lot of my sports teams and all that. So it opens up a lot of discussions easily and gets people talking about, NFL season starting, soccer season, all the various seasons. So, yep.
Nice, man. I have one pennant back there that Oz got me. I became a sports fan last year. It's kind of nuts. My whole life I didn't really watch sports, but so hopefully over time that will grow. But so very cool.
Real quick, guys, I want to kind of make sure and be stewards of the time here. So we appreciate everybody joining. But if there's any questions, please, as we go through the survey, you do have to complete the survey to get the goods from Fairway Meats, which we are super excited about. But also too, like both the Jeff has shared, the 50 user license, completing the survey. But if you do have ControlUp, you do have IGEL, but you haven't maybe got a full update on everything that they're doing within their platforms, put in there. Let's get on a quick 15, 20, 30-minute call. Let's talk about what you're doing, how you're doing it. There could be other ways that we could explore. Like I said, I know one from our leadership, our CEO was asking us, that whole do more with less. How do we automate? And how do we use tools like both IGEL and ControlUp to do so? So thank you guys for your support on that. Real quick, Shane Roz, give me a 60-second plug on your guys' event on September 20th, the Whiskey and Nutanix NC2 event.
And
go
go.
first.
Yeah, go first and I'll jump in because I talk a lot. So go ahead.
You already burned 15 seconds.
Oh,
Let's go.
man. All right.
I
Yes.
was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say we're going to show for a real world take on EUC across public, private cloud, the whole nine, right? So we'll give it to you real like we always do. So we don't give you none of that back talk. We're going to give you the real talk on EUC all over the place and show
So
you.
we're going to be demoing workload on-prem Nutanix, AWS on NC2 Nutanix, and then bare metal as well as Azure on bare metal. You'll see it all work all together, all interconnected. We got a killer lab environment that we've had, which a lot of folks don't have. We have it all interconnected. So we look forward to showing you all live. So we're getting deep and dirty with it. So it'll be fun.
Outstanding. Shane and Oz, thank you guys for joining. Jeff and basically Ron, thank you guys as well. And for all the customers and prospects that join us, we thank you for your time. We want to bring value to you. We appreciate the customer base. We appreciate your partnership. We value that. And also too, if we have not had a chance to work with you, please reach out. Love to have a discussion. We'll always be the first ones to let you know if we can bring value or not. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close out. Ellie, thank you for organizing this. Let's have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks all. Bye-bye.